The cleaner, Samantha, ran out from the CEO's office. Her clothes were torn, her face red, and she was breathing hard. She was pregnant and crying so hard she could barely speak. "Help! Somebody please help me," she shouted. "Call the police." A few employees still around rushed toward her voice. They froze when they saw her drop to the floor, shaking and sobbing. Moments later, Michael Carter, the CEO, walked out of the same office. His shirt was half-buttoned, his tie loose, and his face pale with shock. "Samantha, what's going on?" he asked quietly. "Why are you saying this?" Samantha pointed at him, trembling. "He forced himself on me. He hurt me." Gasps filled the hallway. Phones came out. Cameras started recording. Nobody moved. Everyone just stared. "I didn't do that," Michael said, his voice shaking. "You're lying." Before he could say another word, police sirens wailed outside. Officer Carter and his team ran in. Samantha ran to them, crying loudly. "He did it. He attacked me." Michael just stood there, frozen, unable to speak. An employee stepped forward and said, "There's a camera in his office. You can check the footage." The police nodded and followed Michael and security to the control room. Everyone waited nervously, but when they pulled up the video, the footage was gone. The camera had shut off a few minutes before Samantha entered the office. "What?" Michael whispered. "No, I didn't turn it off. I swear I didn't." People started whispering. The same employees who respected him were now looking at him with disgust. "You did it on purpose," someone muttered. "No," Michael begged. "I would never." "Tell it to the court," Officer Carter said coldly as he handcuffed him. Samantha cried even louder, covering her face as Michael was dragged away while phones recorded everything. As the doors closed, Samantha's phone buzzed in her pocket. She looked around, then answered quietly. A calm male voice asked, "Did the plan go well?" Samantha wiped her tears. "Yes," she whispered. "It went perfectly." She hung up, but her mind kept spinning with one question. Who was Mr. Kane, and why did he want to destroy Michael? Within minutes, the story hit the news everywhere: TV, blogs, social media. Videos of Samantha crying, her torn uniform, Michael being led away in cuffs, his head down, face blank. Billionaire CEO attacks pregnant cleaner. Hashtag Justice for Samantha exploded online. News anchors repeated the story all day. Videos played again and again. Samantha's tears, Michael's arrest, people shouting and filming. No one cared to hear his side. Crowds gathered outside the police station and Nova Green Corporation headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. Justice for Samantha. Punish predators, no matter how rich. Boycott Nova Green. The anger kept growing. Michael sat alone in a cold jail cell, staring at the wall. His name, once respected, was now ruined. No one believed him, except for two people, Jessica, his girlfriend, and Jason, his older brother and best friend. Jessica visited every day. Her eyes were always red from crying, her hand clutching his tightly. "I know you didn't do it," she whispered. "I love you, Michael. I'm not leaving you." Later, Jason came to visit. His face looked hard, his jaw tight. "I believe you," Jason said softly. "You'd never do something like that." Michael nodded, tears forming. For the first time in days, he felt a little hope. "I'll find the truth," Jason promised. "And whoever did this will pay." But things outside only got worse. Protests grew bigger. People were furious. They wanted Nova Green shut down. Clients started canceling contracts. Then came a message from the board of directors. A meeting had been called, without Michael. Jason read the email aloud inside the visiting room. His voice was cold and heavy. "They want you to step down and hand over your shares. They said it's to protect the company's image. For damage control." Michael Carter didn't respond right away. His heart already felt too heavy. Nova Green Corp wasn't just a job to him. It was his dream, his life's work. And now they wanted him to give it up. He stared at the floor for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Give them what they want," he said quietly. "To who?" Jason asked softly. "To you," Michael replied. "You already own part of it. Take the rest. Keep Nova Green alive." Jason hesitated. "Are you sure about this?" Michael lifted his head. "It's better than watching them destroy everything because of me." And just like that, it was all gone. His company, his office, his name, his freedom. He even gave the rest of his assets, houses, stocks, and accounts, to Jason, so they wouldn't get frozen or attacked. Outside, protesters were threatening to ruin anything connected to Michael. Stores were smashed. Offices vandalized. Windows broken. It wasn't about justice anymore. It was about revenge. That night, Michael sat alone in his jail cell. No longer a CEO, no longer in control of anything, except one fragile hope. That Jason would uncover the truth. That someone out there knew this was all a setup. And that the real enemy was still watching. Waiting. Smiling. The court days dragged on, heavy and painful. Every time Michael entered the courtroom, it felt like walking into fire. Cameras flashed, people whispered, protesters yelled outside. Inside, the silence was worse than noise. Everyone's eyes were on him, some full of hate, others just curious. Almost no one showed pity. And still, there was nothing to prove he was innocent. The one piece of proof that could have saved him, the office camera, had gone off just minutes before Samantha walked in. Just minutes. That was what broke him the most. The lawyers used it over and over. He turned it off, they told the court. He planned everything. He made sure no one could see. But Michael didn't even know the camera had stopped. He had no idea how it happened. He tried to explain. He begged them to believe him. But his words sounded small and empty against the public's anger. Then came the final day. Judgment Day. The courtroom was full. Every seat taken. The air thick and tense. Samantha sat in the front row, wearing black, with Mr. Brooks and another activist holding her hands. Her face was calm, almost cold. Across from her sat Jason, Michael's brother and best friend, his face pale, lips pressed tight. Beside him, Jessica, Michael's fiancée, sat with her fingers twisted together in her lap. Behind them were Michael's parents, family, and a few loyal friends who refused to turn away. Michael's hands shook as he stood, scanning the faces. Then Judge Reed entered. Everyone rose. Silence filled the room. The judge cleared his throat and began to speak in a low, steady voice. After carefully reviewing all evidence and testimonies presented, Michael's heartbeat quickened with every word. This court finds the defendant, Michael Carter, guilty of the charges. A faint gasp rippled through the crowd. And sentences him to 7 years in prison. The words hit Michael like a heavy blow to the chest. No, he whispered, shaking his head. No, I didn't do it. The gasps turned into cries. Jason buried his face in his hands and sobbed loudly, broken and lost. Jessica let out a sharp cry, covering her mouth as tears streamed down her face. I'm innocent, Michael shouted, his voice echoing across the courtroom. Samantha, please, tell them the truth. He looked at her desperately, but Samantha didn't look back. She kept her eyes on the floor. She refused to look at him. The officers stepped forward, grabbing Michael Carter by the arms. Cold metal cuffs locked around his wrists. No, Samantha, he shouted one last time. Please, you know I didn't hurt you. But she stayed silent. The officers began pulling him toward the exit. His legs felt weak, like they no longer belonged to him. Then Jessica stood up. She ran to him, tears streaming down her cheeks. Michael, she cried, wrapping her arms around him. I know you didn't do it. I swear I know you didn't. He held her tightly, pressing his face into her shoulder, trying to stay strong. But when he felt her shaking and crying, something inside him broke. He couldn't hold back anymore. He cried, not out of fear, not out of guilt, but from the deep pain of betrayal and from losing everything he had. When the officers tried to pull them apart, Jessica held on tighter. Please don't take him, she begged. He didn't do this. Michael gently pulled away, not because he wanted to, but because he couldn't stand seeing her suffer. Just before they let him out, he looked around the courtroom one last time. And there, in the corner, sat Jason, his brother, his best friend. Jason's hands covered his face, his shoulders shaking as quiet sobs escaped him. That sight hurt Michael more than the sentence itself, more than the humiliation. Because if Jason, strong, loyal Jason, was broken, what hope did Michael have left? He sighed deeply as the door closed behind him. And in that moment, his world ended. That night, Samantha unlocked the door to her small apartment in Brooklyn and stepped inside like a ghost. The room was dark and quiet. She didn't bother to change. She dropped her bag on the floor, walked to the couch, and collapsed. Her hands trembled. Then the tears came, soft at first, then harder, until she was shaking and sobbing, the sound filling the room. She buried her face in her palms. What have I done? She whispered. Her heart raced as guilt wrapped around her like chains. All this for money, she muttered through clenched teeth. I did it for money. Then memories rushed through her mind. She saw Michael's face, not from court, full of pain, but from months before. She was standing outside a grocery store, cold and pregnant, drenched in rain. People walked past her like she didn't exist. Then a sleek black car stopped. The window rolled down. It was Michael. "Do you need help?" he'd asked kindly, his voice full of concern. She remembered how he took her to a small cafe, bought her food, and didn't ask for anything in return. He didn't judge her. He just helped. He even rented a small house for her that same week. He gave her a job at Nova Green Corp, though she had no experience. He didn't have to. He just wanted to help. Samantha cried harder, pressing her face into the couch cushion. She could still see the look in his eyes at court, the hurt, not hate. And she had looked away, because the money she was promised came with silence. Meanwhile, in prison, life was nothing like what Michael had ever known. No fine suits, no offices, no respect, just bars, hard beds, cold food, and heavy silence. Almost everyone had turned their back on him. Friends stopped calling. Family disappeared. Business partners acted like they never knew his name. Except two people. Jason, his brother, and Jessica, the woman who still wore his ring. Jason never missed a visit. Rain or shine, he was there, every single visiting day. "Don't give up, man," he'd say, holding Michael's hands through the glass. "We'll fix this. I promise." They'd talk about Nova Green Corp, now in Jason's hands. They talked about the assets Michael had trusted him with. "How's the house in Maplewood? What about the shares in Blue Nova?" Michael always asked. Jason always reassured him. "Everything's safe. Still yours." Michael would nod, his eyes wet. "Thank you," he'd whisper. "For everything." Jason would just smile faintly. "You'd do the same for me." Then there was Jessica. She never missed a visit. Never. Sometimes she came alone, other times with her cousin Chloe, the loud and funny one who could make anyone laugh. They came smiling, even when they were breaking inside. They brought him clean clothes, homemade food, books. They told jokes, stories, laughed even through the pain. Jessica would hold his hand and whisper, "You're not alone. Not while I'm alive." Those visits, those few moments with the only people who still believed in him, meant everything to Michael. They were the only bit of light left in a world that had turned completely dark. And every time they left after visiting him, Michael would sit on the cold bench behind those bars and whisper to himself, "I have to keep going for them." Years went by. Days in prison all looked the same. Gray walls, hard floors, the same tasteless food, the same quiet voices. But the hardest part wasn't the prison. It was the silence. No one came anymore. At first, Michael tried to stay hopeful. He thought Jason was just busy running the company. He believed Jessica might be caught up in something she couldn't control. But then, the visits stopped completely. No Jason. No Jessica. Not even a single letter. Every visiting day, Michael sat near the small window, staring at the main gate. Waiting. Hoping. Nothing. "Maybe something happened," he whispered one night. "Maybe they're in trouble too." But he had no way to know. And that thought slowly broke him inside. Then one morning, just before breakfast, a guard came to his cell. "You have a visitor," the guard said. Michael's heart jumped. He stood up so fast he almost lost his balance. "Who is it? Jason? Jessica?" he asked quickly. The guard didn't reply. Michael's hands shook as he followed down the long hallway. His heartbeat was louder than the guard's footsteps. He stepped into the visitor's room and stopped. It was Chloe, Jessica's cousin, the cheerful girl who always came with her and brought laughter. Michael tried to smile. "Chloe." She gave a weak smile back, but her eyes were red and puffy, like she had been crying for hours. The first thing Michael said was, "Where's Jessica? Didn't she come?" Chloe looked down. She didn't answer right away. "Why?" Michael asked again, his voice sharper this time. "Why hasn't she come? It's been months, years. Is she okay?" "She's fine," Chloe said quickly. "She went out of the country for work." But her voice shook. Her fingers kept twisting together. She couldn't even look at him. Michael frowned, leaning closer. "You're lying." Chloe's lips trembled. Her eyes widened. "Please, Chloe, tell me the truth," he begged. "Is she gone?" "No," Chloe said fast, but her voice cracked halfway through. Michael's chest tightened. "Then what? Why has she disappeared from my life? Why won't anyone tell me anything?" Chloe gripped the table tightly. Tears filled her eyes. She looked away. "Michael," she whispered. "Forget everyone. Jessica, Jason, the world outside. You need to think about yourself now. Michael's hands pressed flat on the table. What are you saying? He said, panicked. Please, Chloe. I deserve to know. Before she could reply, the door behind him opened. Time's up, Officer Carter said. Just a few minutes, Michael begged. Please. I need to know. But the officer stepped forward and grabbed his arm. Chloe, tell me. Michael shouted, holding the table tightly. What happened to Jessica? Please. Chloe just sat there, frozen. Tears rolled down her face silently. As the guards pulled Michael away, he kept shouting, desperate and afraid. Chloe, please. Is she alive? What happened? Chloe bit her lip, trying not to cry. But once the door closed and Michael was gone, she broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He lay staring at the ceiling, his heart heavy with unanswered questions. Where are they? What happened? Why did they all vanish when I needed them most? He whispered a small prayer. Please, keep her safe. But even as he prayed, a cold fear grew in his chest. Something wasn't right. Something terrible had happened. And the truth was still out there, hiding in silence. The last weeks of Michael's sentence were the hardest. He barely ate. He hardly slept. The silence from Jessica and Jason was louder than the prison walls around him. Only Chloe still visited. She came now and then, bringing food, books, and a bit of comfort. But whenever Michael mentioned Jessica or Jason, she went quiet and quickly changed the topic. He knew something wasn't right, but no one would tell him what it was. Then the day finally came. Freedom. After 7 long, painful years, the gates opened. Michael walked out wearing a plain shirt and old jeans. The air felt warm, strange, like the world had moved on without him. He looked around, scanning the crowd outside. He hoped, prayed, to see Jessica's face. Or Jason's tall figure. Someone who still remembered him. But no one came. Only Chloe stood there, waiting by a silver car. She waved softly. Come on, she said. Let's go home. Michael forced a small smile. Thank you for everything. She didn't answer. Just opened the car door. The ride was quiet. Michael looked out the window, watching the world rush by. The tall buildings of Los Angeles, the noise, the lights. Everything looked the same but felt different. Like it wasn't his anymore. When they reached his small house, he cleaned up, changed clothes, and sat down in silence. But the questions in his heart only grew louder. He couldn't take it anymore. I need to see Jason, he said to himself. I have to know the truth. He walked down the street, each step heavy. His heart beat faster as he reached the familiar house. He stopped at the door, took a deep breath, then knocked. Once. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time, and waited. Then a voice came from inside. I'm coming. The door slowly opened. And there, standing in the doorway, was Jessica. She was heavily pregnant. Her hand rested on the shoulder of a small boy, about 2 years old. Jessica's eyes widened in shock. Michael froze. His mouth opened slightly, his voice barely more than a whisper. Jessica. They just stared at each other, silent, frozen, stunned. Then Michael's eyes dropped to her pregnant belly. His hand lifted slowly, pointing toward it. Who is? Jessica looked away. Her hands shook. Her silence said it all. Then, a man's voice called from inside the house. Honey? Who's at the door? Footsteps followed. Another figure appeared. And when the door opened wider, it was Jason. Michael took a step back. His eyes widened. His chest tightened. Jason stopped in the doorway, stunned. Michael. For a moment, no one moved. Then Michael's lips trembled. He looked from Jessica, to the child, then to Jason, and back to Jessica. Michael stood there on the doorstep, completely frozen. Tears streamed down his face as he looked at the woman he once loved and the friend he once called a brother. The betrayal cut deeper than anything Samantha had ever done. He could hardly speak. Is that why, he whispered, his voice shaking. Is that why you both stopped visiting me? No one answered. He nodded slowly. The pain in his chest felt like a tight fist. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Michael, wait. I can explain. Jessica cried, running after him. But Jason grabbed her arm. Let him go, he said coldly. Jason, she whispered. Let him. Michael didn't look back. His legs moved, but inside, he was breaking apart. He had survived prison. He had survived disgrace. But this betrayal shattered him completely. When Michael got home, Chloe was there, waiting and worried. You went to see Jason, didn't you? She asked softly, seeing the blank, broken look on his face. Michael said nothing. He just walked past her, numb. Chloe followed him inside, trying to comfort him, but he didn't listen. He sat on the edge of the old couch, elbows on his knees, head hanging down. He whispered, barely audible, "I lost everything, but I never thought I'd lose them." Chloe sat beside him and placed a hand on his back. "I'm still here," she said gently. "I believe you." But Michael felt empty. The betrayal reached deep inside him. And just when he thought things couldn't get worse, they did. A few days later, Michael got a letter that confused him. It was full of legal words he didn't understand. He thought it was a mistake, until he went to the property office and confirmed it. Almost everything he owned had been moved into Jason's name. Not just Nova Green Corp., not just his shares, but his houses, cars, and bank accounts, everything. At first, Michael thought it was an error. He tried to challenge it, but the documents were perfect. His own signatures were there. His own power of attorney papers. Jason had stolen everything legally. Why? Michael whispered in disbelief. What did I ever do to him? He tried to stay calm, but things got even worse. One morning, just as the sun was rising, someone knocked on the door. A group of men in suits stood outside, with Officer Carter and other policemen beside them. "Mr. Carter?" the lead man asked. "Yes. You are ordered to leave this property immediately. It now belongs to the bank." "What?" "No. This is my house," Michael shouted. The man held up papers. "It was used as collateral for a loan under Mr. Jason Hale's name. You are no longer the legal owner." Michael's knees went weak. "He used this house?" "My house." They didn't wait. Within minutes, his things were being thrown outside. Locks changed. Doors shut. Michael stood barefoot on the sidewalk, watching the last thing he owned disappear before his eyes. He had nowhere to go. He walked for hours through Maplewood, head down, until he reached Chloe's small, cozy house. She opened the door and saw him standing there, cold and broken. Without saying a word, she stepped aside and let him in. She made him food, washed his clothes, let him rest. Chloe became the only light left in Michael's dark world. She listened. She cared. She gave him peace. Not out of pity, but out of loyalty. But Michael couldn't stay quiet forever. One morning, as rain tapped against the window, he stood up with fire in his eyes. "I have to face him," he said. Chloe looked up, worried. "Be careful." "I just need to know why," he said. "I have to hear it from him." He walked straight to Jason's mansion, once his own home. The guards tried to stop him, but Michael pushed past them and stormed through the front door. Jason stood in the hallway, calm, holding a glass of wine. "Jason," Michael said, voice shaking, "what did I ever do to deserve this? I trusted you. I gave you everything. I called you brother. Why are you doing this?" Jason smirked, cold and cruel. "You haven't seen anything yet," he said, sipping his wine. Michael froze. "What?" "This," Jason said, motioning around the mansion, "is just the beginning." Before Michael could react, Jason snapped his fingers. "Throw him out." The guards grabbed Michael by the arms. "Jason," Michael shouted, "look me in the eyes and tell me why." But Jason only smiled as his former friend was dragged out and slammed onto the pavement. Michael lay there, staring at the gate that once welcomed him home. Now it was just a wall that kept him out. Michael's heart wasn't just broken anymore. It was burning. He sat alone that night, fists tight, staring at the ceiling. Every memory with Jason, the laughs, the promises, the brotherhood, now cut him deeply. "I need answers," he muttered to himself. "And it starts with Samantha. She was the root of everything, the start of the storm. But when Michael went looking for her, it led nowhere. Her old apartment was empty. Someone else lived there now. Nobody knew where she had gone. Some said she left the city. Others whispered that someone had made her disappear. For months, Michael searched. He and Chloe checked bus stops, train stations, even shelters. Nothing. Then one evening, Chloe rushed home, out of breath. "Michael, I saw her," she said quickly. He stood up so fast the chair hit the floor. "Where?" "I was at the mall, buying food. She was there. I followed her quietly. I know where she lives now, way out by the edge of town." The next morning, they didn't wait. They left immediately. They drove for hours, past the busy streets, past the traffic, until the city disappeared behind them, and only long dusty roads and open fields surrounded them. Finally, they stopped in front of a small old house hidden between tall weeds and silence. Michael got out of the car. His heart was pounding. Chloe knocked. Moments later, the door creaked open. Samantha stood there. The color drained from her face when she saw Michael. Her lips shook. Her hands trembled. "Please, don't hurt me," she cried softly. "Please. I'm not here to hurt you," Michael said in a low, shaky voice. "I just want one answer." Samantha held onto the door. "Why? Why did you frame me?" he asked, eyes locked on hers. She looked down, biting her lip. Her voice broke into a whisper. I was paid." Michael froze. "By who?" She shook her head. "He said if I told anyone, I wouldn't live to tell it." "Who, Samantha?" Michael yelled, stepping closer. Tears filled her eyes. Her lips trembled. Your brother," she finally said. "Jason." The world went silent. Michael stood frozen. His chest tightened. His knees gave out. He fell to the ground like someone had taken all the air from his body. "No, that's not true," he whispered. "He turned off the security cameras," Samantha said, crying harder. "He planned everything. He told me what to say. He gave me money. He said he needed you gone." Michael dropped to his knees, broken. "Why would he do this to me?" he whispered. "Years in prison. Everything lost. Everything ruined." Chloe ran to him and helped him up. Samantha cried quietly at the door. "Please forgive me. I didn't know it would go this far," she said. But Michael couldn't respond. He just turned and left. The next morning, right after sunrise, loud knocks echoed through Chloe's home in Maplewood. "Police. Michael Carter and Chloe Barnes, you're under arrest for the murder of Samantha Hayes." "What?" they both shouted. "She was found dead in the river this morning," Officer Carter said sternly. "No, that's not true," Chloe cried. "We saw her yesterday. She was alive." In the interrogation room, the air was tense. The questions came nonstop. "Why did you visit her? What did she tell you? What happened after you left?" Michael reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small recorder. "I recorded everything," he said calmly. He pressed play. Samantha's voice filled the room. "I was paid to frame you. It was your brother, Jason." He turned off the CCTV. He told me what to say. The room went silent. Within hours, a warrant was issued. Jason was arrested at his mansion in Los Angeles. Part 16, The Fall of Jason. During the investigation, the truth poured out like poison from a cracked bottle. Money transfers from Jason's hidden accounts to Samantha. Logs showing he remotely turned off Michael's office security. Phone calls. Messages. All proof. It all pointed to one man. Jason Carter. He had planned it all. He paid Samantha. He blamed Michael. He stole his business, his house, even his fiancée. When he realized Samantha had told Michael the truth, he panicked. And in his fear, he silenced her forever. But he never knew about the recording. Now, there was no escape. Part 17, The Vindication. Michael and Chloe were freed immediately. The police apologized. The news changed their stories. New evidence clears Michael Carter of all charges. Brother behind frame and murder arrested. Justice for Michael. Truth finally revealed. The same people who once hated him now stood for him. Jason's trial began, and this time, everyone wanted justice. The courtroom was packed. The air was heavy. Every breath felt thick with emotion. Michael sat in the front row beside Chloe, calm but drained. His parents sat behind him, faces full of pain. Across the room sat Jessica, her belly round beneath her dress, a small boy clinging to her arm. She couldn't meet Michael's eyes. Her hands shook. Her face was pale, not just from guilt, but from deep shame. Shame that she married the wrong man. Shame that she abandoned the right one. Then Judge Reed walked in, and the courtroom stood. Everyone sat again as the gavel hit. After full investigation, Judge Reed said, "This court finds Jason Carter guilty of conspiracy, false accusation, and second-degree murder. He is sentenced to 50 years in federal prison." Gasps filled the room. Jessica broke down in tears. Jason hung his head, crushed by his own crimes. The officers stepped in to cuff him, but then Michael stood. "Wait," he said calmly. Everyone turned to him. He walked toward Jason, who couldn't even raise his eyes. Michael looked straight at him. "Why, Jason? Why betray your own brother like this?" Jason's shoulders shook. He couldn't answer. He looked at the floor. "I loved you like a brother should. I trusted you. You destroyed my life. You almost killed me. Why, Jason? Why?" The courtroom fell silent. Then, from behind, their father, proud but broken, slowly stood up. His voice broke the silence like thunder. "Jason, I didn't raise you to be this heartless. I never thought you could do this to your own brother." Something inside Jason snapped. His whole body shook as he turned around, face red and eyes wide. Then his voice cracked like broken glass. "Shut up, old man," he shouted, tears finally falling. "You want to talk about raising me? You're the reason for all this. You and Mom. You never saw anything good in me. Not once." Everyone froze. Jason's voice trembled, full of years of hidden pain. "You gave Michael everything. His school fees, his business startup money, your support, your pride. You called him your champion. You left me to figure life out on my own. I raised myself." His mother gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. "When I was struggling, you looked away. When I failed, you frowned. But when Michael succeeded, you smiled and clapped the loudest. You made him your only son." Tears rolled down Jason's cheeks, not from anger anymore, but from deep hurt. "I was never enough. Not smart enough. Not good enough. Never the one you loved the same way." Then he turned toward Michael and finally looked him in the eye. "And yeah, maybe I wanted to destroy you. Not because I hated you, but because I wanted to matter. I thought if I took what you had, maybe they'd finally see me. Maybe they'd finally say, 'Good job, Jason.' Even if it was fake. I just wanted to be seen." His knees gave out, but the guards held him up. His mother cried loudly. His father, who had been quiet all along, sat down and covered his face with his hands. Michael stood frozen, breathing heavily. Tears fell down his cheeks too, not just for what he lost, but for what Jason never had. For the first time, he didn't see Jason as a monster, but as the forgotten son, the one who grew up in someone else's shadow. But choices always come with a price. Judge Reed gave a small nod, and the guards began to take Jason away. He didn't resist. He didn't shout. He just cried, quietly. A broken man, crushed not only by guilt, but by years of pain nobody ever saw. The officers pulled Jason out as he sobbed, no longer angry, just empty, just broken. And the courtroom finally cleared, the truth now out in the open. Part 19, the knock on the door. Weeks passed. Michael got back all that was stolen. But he didn't move back into the mansion Jason had lived in. It carried too much hurt. Instead, he bought a peaceful house in the countryside, far from the city noise. Quiet. Fresh. A new start. Chloe stayed by his side, helping him heal, helping him find peace again. Then one calm morning, there was a knock on the door. Michael opened it and froze. Jessica was standing there, heavily pregnant, her little boy beside her, her face wet with tears. She dropped to her knees. "Please, Michael, forgive me. I didn't know what Jason had done. He told me you were guilty. He used my pain. He married me by lying. I was weak and scared." She looked up at him, eyes swollen. "But I still love you. We can fix this. We're still family. You share the same blood. I can be the mother of your kids." Michael's face stayed calm, unreadable. Then he said softly, "Thank you, Jessica. But I've already seen the mother of my children." Her eyes widened. "What? Who?" Just then, Chloe walked out from the house, her face kind and gentle. Michael turned toward Jessica. "She is Chloe, the one who stayed, the one who believed in me when everyone else left, the one who never gave up." Jessica's tears turned to disbelief. "No, you can't. Not her. Chloe, what are you doing with my man?" Michael answered before Chloe could say a word. "The same thing you did with my brother." Silence filled the air. Jessica screamed and cried, trying to push her way inside, but Michael said calmly, "Security." 2 guards from the gate came and led her away. She struggled and shouted, but soon she was gone down the long driveway. Michael stood at the door, taking a long breath. Then he turned to Chloe. She smiled softly at him, calm and peaceful. He reached out, gently held her face, and whispered, "Thank you for everything." And in that quiet, bright moment, he kissed her, not with pain, but with love and relief. He lifted her gently, spun her once in the sunlight, and together they went back inside.